So I'm going to start by creating the front and back sort of pocket base. So I am going to get those out again, put the inside aside. So I'm going to go ahead and create these pieces. So these pieces, and I will do that by puzzling these guys together. So let me get my, I'm going to move the inner stuff aside and get my outer fabrics here, and we're just gonna layer them on top of each other like we're putting a puzzle together. So this is piece B, and that goes here, here, and then piece C is the small one, and that goes on the bottom. So that's basically how you want to lay them out. And you see they all have like disgusting looking edges and all that sort of thing. So the first thing that I did with my pouch was I kind of made a pretty little seam on each sort of layer. And so what I did, basically what I did was I just folded the top over like so and ran it through my sewing machine on a straight stitch so that it was a nice even sort of seam there. So this is where the glue stick comes in handy. I just take this and I apply a little bit of glue to where I want to fold over that edge. And just fold it over. And then I'm just going to straight stitch it through my sewing machine. But I'm going to go ahead and start gluing all of the pieces that I know I need to have that little seam there. So that way when I go to my sewing machine, I can just batch sew them all together. So that one, this one I don't, because we're going to sew the top portion to that. So the top portion is going to be sewn on top. So when you fold it over, it's going to be a nice little seam. So I'm only going to do the stuff that's going to be the pockets, and I'm going to create those little seams, neater seams on the top. So those are my seams there. I'm going to actually go take this to my sewing machine now and do a straight stitch just across there, just to really adhere that seam. So I've done that. If you see here, I did in the front, both sets. I just did a little stitch there. And so I'm going to put these back to their respective places. So this is going to be my front. So we're going to get that front piece and just have it for reference for what we have to do. So this piece here has the pockets in the middle. So essentially we're going to have to sew from here to here through both layers. But on the front pocket, the first pocket, we have to sew here and then the little pen spot. So what I do is I sew these two guys first according to this diagram here. So I'm just going to line it up like so. I really should have taken it to my iron, but I'm not going to. And I'm just going to pin them down where I need to pin them. So we want to sew these lines. So this line here, and then this line, and then this line, hopefully. So I'm just going to put a pin here to hold that in place, and another one over here. And I'm just going to take a pencil here just to mark off where I need to start. So since I need to start over here, I'm going to just sew from this point. I'm going to sew down straight. So I'm not going to sew this part. I'm just going to sew that together, a straight line. And then I'm going to do the same for these guys over here. So this pen hoop loop is going to be really tight. So I might just move it over just a little bit, because this, of course, is going to be sewn into the thing. So I might move these little pockets over a little bit. So I'm going to sew down here, I guess. So this pocket is going to be smaller, and I'm going to sew over here. So I'm just going to make straight stitches down those places that I've marked, and I will be back. So I sewed down the little pen holders. Hopefully a pen fits in them, because they're really, really tight. So the Muji pens fit, and then of course that'll be the seam. But before I sew, I actually made a boo-boo and sewed this down, but before we do that, we actually have to sew this pocket onto this piece. So once you have your pen, you know, loop bits there, we have to, actually I really don't know how I did this now, because I have to sew, yes I do. I have to sew the line in the middle. Sorry, I had to think for a minute there about how I did this. What? So that line is going to be, you know, this piece is going to sew here, but before we sew that piece, we have to sew this center line in the center of this one. So we're going to sew here. All right, we're going to sew a line straight down on these two. So you're going to, when you put this in your sewing machine, you're going to move this aside, and you're going to sew a straight line here, so that way you have your two pockets here. So I am going to go do that now. Yeah. So you see here, I don't know if you can see, but I did sew a straight line through. So now there, if I take this out, there should be like two pockets there. And now we're going to go, and I'm going to attach just these two together. So when we put this through our sewing machine, we're going to fold that over, and we're going to sew that line back here, so we have a pocket here and a pocket here. So now that we have that, I just go ahead and like trim all these little pieces off. You want to make sure you back stitch when you start and finish your stitch. But once we have that, we have our bases of all our little pockets. And so when we do the that was a really bad back stitch there, but you know what? Let's just cut that off. Mine looks a little crooked, which is fine. I don't care. But once we, put the pieces together, you're going to have your pocket here, the two pen, hopefully the two pens, and your pockets there. And so that is the front piece. So I'm just going to leave that aside, and we're going to do the exact same thing on the back with the back pieces here, except we're not going to do all the fancy pockets like on the front and this piece here. So this piece on the back is just going to be one big open pocket, so we're just not going to do anything for that one. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew this one onto here because the back piece just has the one pocket down the middle. So that's all you're going to do for this one, is just line it up, mark it, and do a straight stitch on the back of this one. And that's about it, because this one doesn't have a pocket. I mean, you can put a pocket there if you want. You can do it however you want, but I'm just going to do it like this. And so this is just going to have a straight pocket down this way. And so once I'm done with this piece, I'm just going to pin it onto this one, since I'm not really sewing this onto this until I put everything together. So I'm going to go ahead and pin this down so that I can run it through my sewing machine just to create that one line for that one pocket. Alright, so I sewed that down. I trim off these guys, and that's basically it for this back, the back pockets, really. I'm just going to go ahead and pin these pieces together so that I know when I go to sew this that they all need to be sewn together, since there's no stitching this to this. I want that pocket to be open. So this is your back piece, which is done, and then of course this is the front piece, which is done. So for the inner lining, we're going to do the exact same thing. So if I can find my lining piece, which is this one, and these guys. These are my lining pieces, right? And so I'm only going to have one pocket on the inside. So one of these lining pieces are just going to be like that. So I'm going to take, I think this is my front and this is my back. I want the back one to have the pocket. So I'm going to put that like that. And so this is my front, and so this lining goes right here. And so, you know, when we go to sew everything together, that lining is going to be right there. Now what you can do if you want, you can actually go ahead and like sew it down here and over here so that both pieces are adhered to each other before the whole piecing it together. When you sew it to the top and the bottom portions, so that it makes it easier, so you don't have to really pin it down if you don't want. I actually don't remember what I did making the bigger one. I might have sewn both sides together just like this, so you're basically going to do a straight stitch down here and a straight stitch down here and up here, and like basically a straight stitch all around to just have these two pieces attached to each other. So you can go ahead and do that now, or you can just pin them together. I think I'll probably do it like off camera the next time I have to go to my sewing machine. So I'm just going to pin it for now so that I know that those two pieces have to be like that together. Like they have to be attached like that together. So that's the front. So I'm going to move that aside because I'm going to work on the back piece, which has the pocket on the inside. So this is my back piece on the front. And so I'm just going to do the same thing that I did for the front for the back pocket. I am going to fold this over and create a nice seam. Even though this piece is cut very evenly, I'm still going to do that. Create a nice seam. And then I'm going to stitch this straight down to create those two pockets. So I'm going to do that now. And if you want two sets of pockets, so like on the inside you want two sets of pockets, you'll do this twice. So this front piece here, you'll sew the pockets on before you attach it to the front piece. I just don't really want two sets of pockets inside of my pouch, so I'm just going to do the one. And it's basically the exact same way that we did the pockets on the front. So I'm going to sew this. I'm going to sew that little line there just to make that seam really, really nice. And then I'm going to attach this to this lining pocket here. So there is my little lining, and now I'm going to pin this to this piece, just like that. And I'm going to sew it right down the middle to create my one pocket on the inside. So if I can find my pocket template on the inside, I'm going to sew a line right here, straight down like I did the other pieces. And so there goes my line, and I'm just going to trim all these guys off. And so when we adhere this back piece, we're gonna adhere them back to back like this. The front will have this lovely pocket on the front, and then the inside will have a pocket on the inside as well. So I'm just gonna now pin these pieces together like this. And so you can already see the layers of fabric that we have, and this is why the walking foot is so essential, is because we're going to have a lot of pieces of fabric to sew through. And so now, if it makes it easier for you, you can go ahead and sew your border. So sew all of this here like that, basically adhering all these layers of fabric together so that it's just one piece of fabric, or you can wait until when you actually have to sew everything together. So this will be my back piece, and then this is my front piece. And I think, for me personally, I think I am going to go ahead and sew, I don't know actually, because I know I have to sew them on when I do the these border strips here. So I'm not sure if I want to adhere them now. It might be easier to adhere them now somehow. So probably what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to just sew them on the bottom here, so that way I can take these pins out and so they're all kind of stuck together. So I might go ahead and do that so that I have my front and back pieces already done, and once we've kind of sewed them, attached all of these layers together, we're going to make our front and bottom pieces, and of course the top and bottom pieces, and of course the top piece is going to have the zipper on it. So I went ahead and sewed around all of the pieces. So I'm going to show you if I can find some done. This is a pocket now. This is the pocket now, and then this big one is a pocket. This is in the back. And so these pieces are now pockets too. And so they're all attached. So that's your one back piece with the inner pocket. And then this one has a pocket here, pocket here. There's one pen here, and it's very tight fitting. And there's another one here. And then we have the one pocket back here and the one pocket back here, and then the back is just a regular lining. And so that is your front and back pieces. And so look at that, that's so simple. And so we won't be using these until we assemble all of the pieces together to create the pouch form, but that's how you make your front and back pieces, and then of course the back piece with the inner pockets. So I'm going to just leave these to the side. Like, I'm not going to use them yet because I have to make the zipper, which is the trickier part, I guess, of this whole pouch tutorial. I'm going to set these aside, and I'm going to work on the top and bottom pieces. Now I'm going to start with the bottom piece because, because it's really simple. It's just this piece, that's all it is. The top part is where we get the trickiness with the zipper. So these are the pieces, of course. You need your canvas, and then you need the lining, and you need 2 pieces of that. And so I have the 2 pieces here, and so I'm going to set this one aside because it's for the top. I'm only going to do the bottom now. So this is my bottom piece. And like I said, I should have ironed this, but you know what? I just want to get this tutorial filmed. It's been taking me a while to film this. It's just, you know, a process, and I wanted to get the PDFs done and all sorts of things. So we're just going to ignore the fact that my fabric has wrinkles in it and just make the pouch. So these are your pieces, right? And you cut them down 17 inches long to about 2.5, 3 inches wide, depending, you know, and then you can always adjust, you know, for depending how, what size pouch you're making, but of course I'm making this little small one here, and those are the dimensions. And so I have the lining piece and I have the canvas piece, and what we're going to do is we're literally going to put them on top of each other like this, and we're going to sew them together. So we're going to just put them on top like that, and we're just going to sew it together to make one nice long piece that is sewn together. So of course this is going to be the lining, so this is going to be what's on the inside of the pouch, and that's going to be on the outside. So we're just going to sew them together. It's probably one of the things I like least about sewing is having all of these little kind of crazy loose threads poking around, and then you cut them off and you have a big pile to the side of you, which you can't really see, of just loose threads. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and just sew literally a straight line this way, like that, over here, and then this way, and then this way. I believe that's how I did it, because we're going to end up sewing this piece to those other pieces. So that's all you're going to do for this bottom piece. So I'm going to go do that now. So that is my bottom piece here. It is all sewn together. They're both sewn, so you have a nice strip. You have the lining on the inside, and then this will of course appear on the outside. And so I'm going to just set this aside where my front and back panels are, because we will use this later again when we're gonna piece together all of the pieces when we put our pouch together. So I'm gonna take away all these little strands here and then set this aside. So I'm just going to clean off my space really quickly so that I can get the top part done. Alright, so again, you're going to pull out the pieces that you have for your top part, which are these pieces here, and I'm trying to remember how I did this. I have an idea of how I did this one. I just don't know exactly if that's how I did it. And if you're watching this video, I apologize for me not remembering anything, but I did make my big pouch a couple of weeks ago as I'm filming this tutorial, so it's kind of hard to remember exactly what I did. So I'm having to piece everything together again, basically, just to get this. Okay, so the top part basically has to be like this. It has to be exactly like we did this one. You know, we have to adhere those pieces together, but we have to cut it in half. We have to cut it in half because your zipper goes there. So I am trying to figure out if I want to do the same thing that I did with that one and just sew the pieces together and then cut it in half and then sew each half onto my zipper that I have here. So let me just take the zipper out of the packaging so I have it ready. And so yeah, the zipper is going to be in like this on the top there. But of course, we're going to have to put this fabric like that, you know, on top. For me, it doesn't really matter how it looks on the inside, because I don't think this one, yeah, that's basically just how it looks on the inside. It's fine. And then, so, I want this there like that. So I think what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and sew these two guys together, and then I'm just going to cut the whole entire strip in half. So it seems like once they're sewn together, it's one piece of fabric, and then I cut it in half, and then I'll sew this individual sides to the zipper. And that is how we're going to go about this. So I'm going to go do that. I'm going to create the border, basically a straight stitch, you know, just to adhere both pieces together. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut it in half. So that is my piece here. I sewed it the same way, and now I have this nice long piece of fabric here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut it in half. That's the part, you know. That's the, I wouldn't say tricky part, but you know, it's kind of nerve-wracking a little bit. So I'm just going to cut it straight in half now, as evenly as possible. But again, it's okay if it's not quite even. Tried my best to make it as even as possible. So those are the pieces now. Now we're going to take our lovely zipper and just going to put this edge onto this edge. So we're going to sew, this is the tricky part, we're going to sew this like this, a straight stitch, and then once it's stitched, we're going to fold it over, stitch it again, and then do this side and do the same thing. Now I don't change out my foot. I'm still using my normal foot. I'm not going to use a zipper foot. I didn't use a zipper foot for sewing on this zipper. I'm going to try to jerry-rig my tripod so that you can actually see what I'm doing when I'm sewing. This is going to be really tricky. I've never actually positioned my camera to aim at the sewing machine while I'm sewing, because all the other pieces are really simple to just sew through. But this, I think, especially if you've never sewn before and you have no idea what to do, it might be a little bit daunting. So yeah, so I'm basically going to sew along here, right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to pin this side here down to this piece. And I'm trying to get this as even as possible. So I'm just pinning it down on the opposite side. So where we pin it is not where we're sewing it. We're sewing this top part. So I'm pinning it down here so that it stays in place, because you really want this to stay in place while you're sewing. Right, and so we're going to take this now and we're going to sew this way. That's what we're going to sew down, and I believe we can just sew it like this. This is going to be tricky because of the actual zipper part, but again, I'm going to reposition my camera hopefully the best way that I can so you can actually see what I do when I'm sewing. So I'm going to do that now and see you at the sewing machine.